Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tempcast, the official GBAtemp podcast. Today, I'm joined by our resident legal whatever, Eric.
Hey, that's me.
Podcast regular, Steven.
Hello.
And executive producer, Chary.
Woo!
And they call me the Alan John. Now, this week, instead of doing a regular, properly produced episode with discussions about the topics that occurred the past week and events and the hacking scene and whatever, we just said, nah, 2020 retrospective. Yeah, baby, that's right. We're doing the 2020 retrospective. What does that mean? Well, we're each going to be talking about our opinions about this past year in terms of gaming. We're going to be naming our top 5 even games of the year of 2020. And we're going to be, discussing our opinions. And I'm sure everybody is eager to hear our expert opinions on this matter because this year has been very strange for gaming. Let's admit it. Come on, it's true. So, let's start off with the biggest gamer in our studio right now, Steven.
I thought 2020 was a pretty good year for games, honestly.
Great opinion.
I don't know that I have any unifying thoughts for the year overall. There was a lot of good, weird little indie games this year, I guess. I don't know if I just felt like I was more in tune with indies this year because I finally got a gaming PC and I'm finding more weird little games on like itch and stuff like that. But I felt like that was mainly what I gravitated towards this year, and I found a lot of cool games that I don't think I would have found otherwise. So that was cool for me. That's mainly what I took away from this year.
Yeah, in my case, I found out the other day when I was scrolling through my PlayStation profile that I have actually completed 50 games this year, platinum 50 games this year. And of those games, about 6 of them were from 2020. So this year was definitely the year of the backlog for me. Though I do enjoy the games that I played, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to play a lot of the really big ones. Ghost of Tsushima I didn't touch, Last of Us Part 2 I didn't touch, any of that. But I have played enough to be able to speak on some cool games that, maybe flew under your radar. But yeah, I think this year was a pretty good year for games, personally.
That's actually probably something we should mention, too, is that there's probably a lot of big games that none of us here have played. Like, I don't think any of us played Last of Us Part 2 or Carrion or Wasteland 3 or Hades or, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot that we missed. So this isn't necessarily like a comprehensive look back at the year, but...
I tried to play Cyberpunk 2077. That didn't go well.
I tried to play Cyberpunk 2077 and I nearly threw up into my waste bucket because it's motion sickness, the video game.
Oh man, did you have a seizure?
No, could I sue them if I did?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, snap.
as long as you downloaded the patch, though. If you didn't download the patch and you got a seizure, that's on you.
Man, I'm gonna go download the original quote-unquote version off of a certain bay and just start flickering my RGBs and induce it.
This is not legal advice. Oh God, we're off to a terrible start. What do you think about gaming this year, Chary?
I think this was a really mixed bag year. There were a lot of standout hits, but I was pretty happy with a lot of the games that came out overall looking back, but it felt like there were a lot of big gaps where it was just like absolutely nothing interesting came out. I mean, we had a lot of big titles, though. I mean, Yakuza had a new entry, The Last of Us had a new entry, there was a new Animal Crossing, there was a new Assassin's Creed, we got a Persona 5 Royal, we got a PC port for Persona 4 Golden. There were a lot of huge things going on this year. Just whether or not they were standout hits that we'll remember next year is another question entirely.
My Name is Mayo 2 actually came out this year as well.
Oh my gosh.
So lots of
Eric, we're going to get to our top 5 later. Stop giving away all of our game of the year. It's going to be awkward if we talk about it now.
Okay, never mind. You didn't hear anything from me.
Were there a lot of games expected this year that ended up getting delayed? I know Halo Infinite has been kind of moved indefinitely, but was there anything else that people were looking forward to this year that got pushed back? There must be something, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I know there were... Oh, Dying Light 2 was supposed to come out this year. I know that.
Oh, okay.
I don't recall if Deathloop was set for this year or not, but I feel like it's first... I feel like that was shown at E3, and then it was like, JK, Corona, so we're delaying it.
Yeah, because I was thinking with Corona there'd be a lot more delays, but there's not a ton that are jumping to mind right now. Like I said, except Halo.
I mean, obviously, Skull and Bones was delayed for the 8th year running. But I don't think that was a COVID delay.
Cyberpunk managed to fit in like 3 delays, but it did eventually come out this year, so...
Yeah, managed 3
good for
delays
them.
in the same
Good job,
year.
CD Projekt Red.
Yeah.
You did it.
They
It
nailed
only
it.
caused an entire week of mega drama and rage on the internet.
Just a week. I feel like it's been a little longer than that.
Speaking, I guess Cyberpunk was. I would say that's the biggest game of the year because that's been sitting around for like 8 years, right? It was when they originally announced that. People have been waiting for that, and people have been waiting for Last of Us Part 2 for a good few years. Also, I do feel like there was a lot of big games that people have been waiting for that eventually dropped. Like I think Doom Eternal was announced a few years ago. Sakuna was announced a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I went to every E3. That was at the first E3 I went to in 2016. That game was revealed, and I got to watch a little trailer for it. And then the next year, they're like, oh, it's coming out. And then right after E3, they were like, whoops, we're actually delaying that. And every year I went back, they just delayed it further and further. And every year I got to play a different demo and a different this and a different that. But it actually came out. I thought for sure they were going to delay it and be like, joke's on you. But I got to play it, and it was great. And I'm really happy it was worth the wait.
That's another one I've been meaning to get around to. I haven't played that yet either. Superhot finally got a proper sequel this year. There were a lot of big games this year.
Oh, Half-Life Alyx.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Man, it's funny. Games that released like in March or around there and earlier feel like they were just a different year entirely because 2020's been so insane.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Animal Crossing?
Yeah. Did we talk about... I thought
That's probably the biggest game, like, in terms of sales.
Yeah, Animal
Switch, at
Crossing ran away with everything. It became the perfect quarantine game, and I want to talk about it a little more in-depth later, but
Yeah.
it totally didn't deserve those sales.
Ooh.
Deadly Premonition got a sequel this year. I've been waiting for that for 10 years. Which is about how long you had to wait for the review to get published, but still.
Yeah. Shout out to Thug and his patience.
But I've been waiting for that for a long time, so that was exciting. XCOM 2 got a sequel / spin-off thing. That was really good. Well, it was good.
And we also got a few next-gen stuff, because obviously 2020 was the year of the new console generation, so we had like the Spider-Man Miles Morales for the PlayStation 5, although it was cross-platform, so whoops.
Yeah. There was the remaster, the remake of Spider-Man 2018. People have been waiting for that for like 2 years.
Yeah, featuring a less Sam Raimi-ish Spider-Man. The weirdest change in a video game.
Yeah, that was really weird.
I don't like his new model. I know it's supposed to look more like Tom Holland, but it looks goofy, and the fact that they went out of their way to change it makes me uncomfortable.
Now I want to find a mod of the game where you play as Goofy.
That's the next
That would be
Kingdom
great.
Hearts 3 DLC. Calm down.
Pretty much. You know, there was a world in Kingdom Hearts 3, the Big Hero 6 world. It seemed pretty open Spider-Man-y in a weird, really weird way. So you kind of do have Goofy as Spider-Man. But that, unfortunately, Kingdom Hearts 3 didn't release this year, so we can't talk about it.
Next time. We'll do a 2019 retrospective some year when things are slow.
2029.
Oh, does that mean we could do a 2010 retrospective right now? Because maybe there are some games that I've actually played from that era.
We should do a 2010 retrospective sometime. Then I can talk about.
We
the
actually should. That
one.
should be the next episode.
Yeah. If we did a 2012 retrospective, there's like 15 games I love that came out that year. That
Gosh,
are like,
2012 was a stacked year. The early 2010s were insane.
Dude,
Like
2010 had Red Dead Redemption, Mass Effect 2, Call of Duty Black Ops, Civilization 5, Battlefield Bad Company, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Okay, that sucks. Alan Wake.
Whoa, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. That was one of the good ones.
Dude,
what are you talking about?
don't you attack the Ezio games. I will fight you.
I do not care. Never played them. Not
Also,
even
Fallout
planning
New Vegas. How is that not like the top of the 2010 list? Or Halo
Super
Reach.
Mario Galaxy 2. Wow.
Deadly Premonition 1.
There was a Bioshock 2. Heavy Rain. Oh, man.
Depending on how successful this episode is, maybe people will want us to do retrospective of maybe every year since like 1972 when Pong came out.
Pac-Man.
We could do,
But, dude, that's not breaking news content.
I see. I was thinking of that doing that once when I said I really.
Yeah, bringing you content.
When I said I really, there was a lot of games in 2012 I liked. I was thinking about doing a blog once that was gonna be my top 12 games of 2012, and then I was thinking it would be fun to do like my top 72 games of 1972 as an April Fool's blog.
All of them are Pong. Every single one. Man, it's weird to think because if you compared 2020 to like 2010 just now, there were the same amount of like major series getting new games. I don't know if I'm being nostalgic or 2020 jaded me or what, but I look back on the 2010 games and I'm like, holy crap, there were so many good games. And then I see like the same series getting sequels. Like there was an Assassin's Creed game this year and I feel apathetic towards it.
Really?
Oh yeah, Valhalla it's good, honestly. It's probably the best Assassin's Creed has been in years, but it's still far below what the original 3 Ezio games reached, I think.
I didn't even play Valhalla, but I agree with you. I don't think it'll get better.
Assassin's Creed 2 is that good.
I've been
Yeah.
playing Black Ops Cold War, and yeah, like I like it, but it's not as good. Like I'm not as in love with it as I was with Black Ops.
Now, was that the Black Ops remake or the original you're talking about? Or
Wait, what?
was Black Ops remade? Was that the one that got remade?
No.
Modern
Warfare was, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, I'm sorry I'm not up to date on the whole Call of Duty series.
God.
But it's kind of insane because Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War came out like almost 10 years after the first Black Ops. Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's the 5th Black Ops game. It's not like they took time off away from it, really.
Yeah, you're right. It is the 5th.
Remember when they released Black Ops 4 and it was, instead of having a 4, is the Roman numeral, but it was just 4 eyes? That was how they wrote Black Ops 4.
Yeah, I do.
That was awesome.
The last Call of Duty game I played was actually Modern Warfare Remastered. It was good.
Did you kill the child and the woman in the crib?
I don't think that was that game, was it? Unless I repressed it.
Repressed it.
Yeah, there's like a mission in Modern
I might have done
Warfare,
that.
like where you.
Hey, if it was tied to getting a trophy or achievement, then yeah, I did it.
A true fanatic.
You don't know what evil. Well, a digital baby. Well, then again, I don't really want to destroy my streak, so maybe I don't know. Maybe I would. It's like I gotta get that number as close to 100% as possible. So
You have to.
You have to.
we're gonna have to talk about that addiction, even though we're probably gonna mention it a couple more times when talking about video games, because that's my entire personality and reason that I play video games is for those little digital trophy tokens to say, "Hey, you did it." And I'm like, nice. Now my mom can
I
be
like
proud
that
of me.
your inner monologue that congratulates you on trophies sounds like Sonic the Hedgehog.
Nice. Yeah.
Alexander.
I just have City Escape in my head on a loop by Crush 40.
That's just my entire life. Every day I wake up and I'm like rolling around at the speed of sound.
We need to have an April Fool's podcast where City Escape is just playing over, like so loud that you can't even hear the voices. That's the entire podcast. We
should. We need to We need to dub over Sonic Adventure 2 Battle.
Oh my god.
The four of us do a fan dub of it.
That would be a good time.
Or a script reading.
Forget the podcast.
We
That's
need to
our
do a
next
script
project.
reading. Oh, let's do it.
So I know we had a lot of ports this year, but an unofficial one that I thought was really good was the Super Mario 64 one for the Switch.
Oh yeah, that's a good call.
I know it's obviously not official, but when compared to the actual physical official release of Mario 3D All-Stars, it just blows it out of the water. I mean, they didn't even get widescreen support.
That still blows my mind. Like, how the hell did they not just implement widescreen? That's been available for that game thanks to modding for decades already. And Nintendo couldn't even do that. Even though, like, I accept the fact that it runs through an emulator, okay? Because that's probably the safest way you can play, like, an N64 game on another system is through an emulator. Because just porting the game, you can introduce, like, some weird glitches, stuff like that. So emulating is the safe route. But even with emulating, you can update assets. You can change the resolution. It's possible. It's easily done. But Nintendo's like, nope, 4x3, deal with it.
It was a really sad port, given that was like our big... I know Corona got in the way of a lot of it, but considering it was the 35th anniversary for Mario, and all we got was a little Battle Royale game and a awkward 4x3 collection of old Mario games on the Switch, and that was pretty much it. Oh yeah, and it's also, both of those are limited.
Yeah, it's going to be gone from the stores in like 20 days, right? No, 90, I think.
Yeah. In very weird, but very unsurprising Nintendo fashion. They just put something up for a little bit, and then they're like, we don't want that much money.
Which sucks, because Mario 35 is so awesome. Like, it's a really cute concept, and they could build upon it. Like, they could even release, like, the normal game is free to play, and then they have, like, a paid Super Mario World version that would cost, like, $9.99. They could print money from that. They could keep building onto it. But just like Mario Maker 2, they're like, okay, that's it. Wrap it up.
That's insane.
I don't understand how they... I don't
and yet
get
we
the
all
logic
willingly
sometimes.
throw money at them still.
No, I don't.
I don't.
Wow, okay.
GBAtemp, we don't give money to Nintendo, only for the consoles.
Oh yeah, I forgot we're the Breath of the Wild 7 out of 10 site.
Yeah. Well, now we're the Cyberpunk 2077 7 out of 10 site as well.
Forget Yokai Watch.
That's actually a pretty high score for Cyberpunk, to be honest. Like, I'm surprised Steven gave it that high of a score. I think if Steven was playing on a base PS4, his
big time
score would be a little bit different.
Yeah, big time.
I mean, he did play the best version of it available on GOG.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, that was kind of my take. Was like everyone was.
Yeah, give me that chicken for Popeyes.
Oh yeah, Cyberpunk, nice and beefy.
Oh, yeah, gotta get that. It's RTX on Cyberpunk.
Yeah, that's the sound I make whenever I turn on my really beefy gaming PC. I start flexing. I'm like, ooh yeah, ray tracing. Ooh. My neighbors aren't a big fan of when I play Cyberpunk. Yeah, but everyone's been talking about the glitches so much with Cyberpunk. I was like, I don't see any point in covering it. Like, I'll just talk about the game as it is, because no one else has been able to play it except for me, it looks like.
Yeah, you're the only person on Earth.
Yeah, I'm the only one that's been able to get through it.
That was a legit, very good, very professional review. Like, seeing that was really, really good stuff.
Good job. I'm proud of you, bud.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Hurt.
Going back to Super Mario 64 for a second, it was pretty fun. I mean, not complicated, but still interesting compiling the game so that you could make that APK of it so you could play it on your Android phone as like an app. So I thought that was a pretty interesting port that came out this year as well. Again, unofficial.
Yeah.
But it was pretty fun. So do it if you own a copy of the game already. Don't be sneaky. Yeah, that's the only port I played.
Congrats. Now we get to just kick you off the podcast. Your use to us is done.
Yep, that's it. Bye.
Eric has left the studio permanently.
Thank
you,
goodness.
Eric. Let's clap for Eric. Thank you, Eric, for your service.
So actually, what do we do now? Because we talked about Mario.
Are there any ports that you want to talk about, Steven?
Persona.
I know we got to talk about Persona.
What about Detroit?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I have like 90 M&Ms in my mouth. That's why I haven't spoken in so long.
Like you just had a bunch of Kool-Aid, just drinking it, trying to talk around it after going, oh, yeah. ASMR chewing.
Loves it.
So we got to cover Persona and Detroit on your side. And I'd like to, does Tony Hawk count? I guess you're putting it in your top 5.
See, and I have a port that I'm also putting in my top 5, so... Ugh.
Fuck you, Eric.
Yeah, I tried to make a list that avoided DBZ, Kakarot, and Tony Hawk, because I knew you guys would both pick it.
Well, I don't need Tony Hawk in mine. I have other games I can use, like I said.
Okay.
So we can talk about Tony Hawk as a port / remake or whatever.
Tony Cock.
No!
Got him!
I wish I was introducing the episode now so that I could say, and joining me is Alan John, and then instead of saying hi, I could just cut in him going, Tony Cock! Maybe I'll record my own intro and surprise you all with what you say to me when I introduce you. Anyway, speaking of Tony Cock, no, I need an actual segue into that though. Well, what were we
Other
talking
ports,
before?
blah, blah, blah.
Well, on subject of ports, I mean, it's more of a remake than a port, but the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 came out this year also.
Probably one of the best ports or remakes out there. I was so skeptical of it if it was gonna be good or not, given Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5.
Well, not only that, but there was Tony Hawk Pro Skater HD on the 360, which for some reason no one seems to remember. But these games have already been remade or ported or whatever, and that remake was not great.
Yeah, I totally forgot it existed, even though I bought it, and you just brought back all that disappointment, so thanks.
No problem. That's what I'm here for. Just a walking ball of disappointment.
But my gosh, what a good remake.
It's unreal how good that game is. I got completely obsessed with that game when I got it and just like poured hours and hours and hours into it, like I did with like honestly pretty much no other game this year. Those games are just so simple and like easy to get into. Like there's absolutely no fat on them. There's not a wasted second in there.
And I don't know, maybe I'm just a sucker, but the kind of late 90s aesthetic is really nostalgic and I love it. Like all the music and stuff. I'm glad they got some of those tracks back.
Yeah, the music and everything is very like punk and anti-authority. Like your objectives in the missions is to do stuff like grind cop cars and take down like no loitering signs and stuff like that. Yeah, it's this all kind of like very petty anti-authority stuff.
I mean, there are a few games that would make me break my, gosh dang, I hate opening the Epic Games launcher, but Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is one of the few exceptions I'll make for that launcher, because I bought it the day it launched. I couldn't help it. I was like, I can be strong, I can be strong, I can be strong. And then I found myself opening Epic, and I was like drumming my hands over my credit card. And I was like, do I really want to do this? Like staring into the abyss of Tim Sweeney and his Epic Games launcher. And I was like, you know what, gosh dang it, you win. Fine, take my money.
That's the power of Tony Hawk, man.
And I didn't emerge from my room for like 5 days because I was playing Tony Hawk.
Yeah, that pretty much happened to me after I got it. I held out for a few days, and then I was like, you know what, I really want to try these. And like, I forgot, I grew up more playing Underground and stuff like that. I kind of forgot how simple. Yeah, I forgot how simple the early ones are, because there's, like I said, there's nothing unnecessary there. Like, it drops you in, you skate for 2 minutes, and then it's like, do you want to try another one or go again? And like, everything is so fast and tight in this new engine where there's very little delay on any of your inputs. You can do stuff right up to the second you need to, and like, I don't know, it's just, and everything builds towards this one idea of like building speed and going as fast as you can, and like, you know, every now and then you'll even have to like stop and look around for an objective, but then in order to get the height you need to reach it, you got to like do tricks and stuff to build speed. So even if you're not trying to get a good score, you kind of end up needing to do that stuff anyway. So it just, everything feeds into this like perfect little cycle, and I don't know, I love that game. It's really amazing. Yeah,
I mean, everything is so satisfying. It's honestly one of my favorite games of 2020.
You just listened to the official GBAtemp recommends of Tony Hawk Pro Skater. That was the audio book version of it.
The audio book.
No, actually, I liked American Wasteland, so I should probably try Pro Skater, because going to the earlier ones, the Tony Hawk games before Wasteland seemed to me like this seems kind of outdated, you know.
Yeah.
And the ones after Wasteland looked like poop. So
Yeah.
I tried them.
Yeah, I would
Killer
say
situation.
I'd say 1 and 2 is your best bet because I replayed them on an emulator also, and they are outdated. It's just they're just a little slow and clunky. Like,
Yeah, I went back when they announced it, and I was like, oh man, I want to get an idea. I want it to be fresh in my mind for when Activision obviously screws it up, which they fortunately didn't, but
yeah,
I was like, oh my gosh, it still held up. The gameplay was still great, but they were a little clunky. It was like, oh gosh, this is the 90s clunky PlayStation 1 game. Please stop.
yeah, and it also did a smart thing where it like added in new objectives.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you can just switch between 1 and 2 right at the end. Like, whenever you complete an objective, it's just like, hey, you want to do this same level, or you want to pick a new one? You unlocked a new one. Or, hey, you want to move over to the sequel?
Yeah, exactly.
It's so good. Just stop listening to this podcast and go play Tony Hawk. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I got distracted by what Eric put in the chat. That's why I chilled off.
Go play with Tony Hawk's cock. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Tony Cox.
Sorry.
So 2020 might have been like the year of ports, because when I look back, most of the games I enjoyed were ports of older games. And I was so excited for this one. They announced 2 games at once, Xseed, and they were like, you remember Rune Factory? You're getting not only a sequel to a series where the developer died, and they reformed them just to make Rune Factory 5, but they're also re-releasing Rune Factory 4. And the second I saw that announcement, I was like, well, I'm going to have to clear a whole entire month off when that game comes out. Because Rune Factory 4 is just, oh my gosh, it's so addictive. You go in and you're like, oh, I'll just play like a few days. And then it's like 36 hours later and you're like, what year is it? When I played it on the 3DS, I was still in high school and I was like, homework, what's that? And when I played it this year, I was like, GBAtemp, what's that?
Yeah. So what is Rune Factory? It's sort of a it's kind of a Harvest Moon type thing, but it's got RPG elements, right? Is that it?
Yeah, its official little subtitle it used to have was Rune Factory: A Fantasy Harvest Moon.
Oh, okay.
Which, I mean, that pretty much says it all, but it's Harvest Moon, but better in every way. It's honestly made every Harvest Moon game obsolete for me, because Story of Seasons Friends of Mineral Town also came out this year. And after playing Rune Factory 4, I tried going back to it, and I was like, no, Harvest Moon is ruined forever. Thanks, Rune Factory, you're too good. Honestly, anyone that enjoys Stardew Valley, it's a shame because Stardew took off so incredibly well. And Rune Factory's always been sitting there like, hey, I did this first. Guys remember me?
Yeah, but I guess Rune Factory hasn't had the same hold in the West that Harvest Moon did, right? So
yeah,
Stardew was kind of able to slip in there.
I mean, it does everything that Stardew Valley... I like Stardew Valley, but I love Rune Factory. And it just retroactively destroys any farming sim game because the combat is better than anything in Stardew. The characters are better than anything in Harvest Moon. It's the quintessential little farming sim RPG, make your own little fantasy life and live on a farm kind of game. It's perfect. And this has been the Rune Factory 4 special podcast, the solo edition, because no one else is nerd enough to play it.
Yeah.
Oh, once I get to my top 5, you'll see that I do play some nerdy games.
I only play cool games like Baby Labor and Tall Bagel.
Detroit.
Should we try to segue to Detroit?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, okay. I can cut that so that sounds natural. And then I'll say, oh my, yes. I won't say that. Oh my, yes. Yeah, Detroit also got a PC port at the very end of last year. If we're playing by Game Awards rules, stuff that comes out in December of 2019, wouldn't have been eligible until this year's award. So we're going to bend the rules a little to talk about the Detroit re-release, because me and you played that, Chary, and you hadn't played it when it came out on PS4, right?
No, I was interested in it, and then I was just like, I hate my PS4, I'll just never play it.
See, I played Detroit, and I was like, I hate Detroit, I'm never going to play this, because I got about halfway through, and I couldn't stand the game. I thought it was really, like, over-the-top melodramatic, like, it had no subtlety to it. Every point was made with a sledgehammer, like, just beat you over the head.
We have a dream.
Yeah, and like just some of the acting was real over the top. The villains were like complete cartoon characters. No one really felt real. And the androids are supposed to feel real in that game. And I got sick of it. And somehow it came up in conversation between me and you, and we both played it. And we actually finished the game, and I kind of liked it mainly because I had someone else to play it with and like vent my frustration about it. But playing it a second time, I could see a few things that I appreciated and I really liked about it.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would have been able to stomach them if I was alone.
I feel like it's a game that's enhanced by having a second player to like bounce ideas or to laugh at the dumb stuff. Because I feel like if I had been playing that solo, I would have been caught up with the whole ham-fisted nature of it, and I would have been like, oh my gosh, seriously, David Cage? But instead, I was like, oh my gosh, can you believe this crap? And you were like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. And it just was so laugh-worthy. Like, all the hammy scenes were hilarious to poke fun at. And it made me appreciate the game. Like, I had low expectations because you went into it saying, like, oh my gosh, I hated Detroit. It's so garbage. It's so dumb. It's so over the top. And I was like, oh gosh, it's probably awful. And then we played it, and I was like, wait, this is so dorky. The characters are so hilarious. It's just so over the top in all the right ways and campy that I loved it.
Yeah, and it's not a complete, like, hate-watching experience. It's not like watching The Room or something and laughing at it, because there were a couple of parts that I find kind of interesting. Mainly, actually, I'm going to say exclusively with the cop android that's trying to, like, hunt down the other androids. There's some interesting stuff with him that I think works really well, but the rest of it does have enough, like, kind of stupid, I don't even know if I want to call it charm, because it doesn't feel intentional. The game takes itself so seriously, but there is some fun to be had with it if you have someone to talk to about it and vent that frustration. Otherwise, it just sort of builds up and spills over.
I think the game's first chapter with that same cop android was so well done. It, like, introduced you to the world. It brought in the whole kind of drama of the whole world hating androids on a kind of low-key scale, because it wasn't like, you dumb android. It was just the cops, like, staring at you weirdly and scoffing at you and being like, get out of my way. And it was subtle, and it was well-paced, and it showed you that, like, hey, we're not afraid to have tons of branching choices based on if you look at a pot of noodles or not.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it unfurled. I feel like they made a demo and then tried to make a game around that demo. And the final product is good, but I don't think the game lives up to its first chapter.
No, not at all. Not even close. Yeah, that first chapter they did release as a demo, and that was what got me to buy the game and go in with such high expectations. I don't know. You can probably still get that demo. If anyone's interested in the game, just play that and then pretend that was the only thing they released.
Pretend you played the entire game.
Yeah, because it says and does pretty much everything the full game does.
So I think it's time for us to go into our top fives finally, because we're about an hour in, and I promised that we're going to give our top 5 games an hour ago. So how about we get to that?
All right. Alan John, how many games from 2020 did you play in 2020?
Less than 5. So making this list was very difficult for me personally, but I did make it. So here it goes. Number 5. I'm just going to list them all, right? We're not doing some...
Wait, why? I thought we were going around in a circle.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
We can do that. Let's...
All right.
Okay. Just cut that out.
I just heard a different bone in my body.
He's dead. We got to continue without him. Fire Eric again.
It was... What's that thing called? The bendy part of your leg?
The knee.
The knee.
The bendy part.
What?
I just hurt my knee. Okay.
How do you forget what a knee is called?
Okay, Mr. Doctor, what's your top 5 games?
Yeah, man.
Parts of the body.
What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Pacer by R8 Games, which is a game that I reviewed. It's basically a Wipeout spiritual successor, which though might not be as good as the original Wipeout games. I think it's really fun driving in these very fast cars and then learning to maneuver them properly in order to make tight turns. It's very satisfying little game. It doesn't have like a campaign, it's a plot or anything. It's a very, very simple game. It's got a fun soundtrack. It's got nice visuals. So it definitely deserves a place on my top 5 list. Pacer.
All right, Eric, you're number 5.
So, like I said earlier, I played about 50 games in 2020, but only a couple of them were from 2020. So this list is going to be a little funny, especially for those of you who aren't as weeby as me. My number 5 was One Piece Pirate Warriors 4, which was it's a Warriors-like game. It's just like all of the other One Piece Pirate Warriors games are, or say any of the Hyrule Warriors games. I thought that it was really fun, but that's coming from a big One Piece fan. The thing is about the story mode in this game is it sort of jumps you right into the middle. You sort of start right in the middle of it, and then you complete an arc, and then it skips a couple arcs, and then it skips another couple, and skips another couple. So it really presupposes that you actually know the story beforehand. However, this game has less characters than the previous games, but they're all play much more varied than they played in the last one. So all the characters are much different. It's sort of like the difference between Budokai Tenkaichi 3, where it had like a billion characters, but they all played the same, versus, say, Burst Limit, which was a worse game, but the characters at least played differently.
So do you feel like that trade-off works in Pirate Warriors 4 or not?
I do think so. I think that if you are a fan of One Piece and you had to pick between 3 and 4, you definitely want to go with 4 because you already pretty much know the story. And this story in 4, what it does is it skips you around, so you don't really care. So it's like you don't grow connected to the characters at all, but you do receive all of the spoilers that happen. So if you are not familiar with One Piece, this will basically ruin it for you. Whereas if you sort of want to get like the story, but don't care as much about the gameplay, I would go for the third one, or just watch the anime.
All 900 episodes instead of playing the game.
There's 955. There's a fan edit. You can look it up, Google it, edit of One Piece without any of the filler. It's worth it. But anyway, Pirate Warriors 3 is really good. 4, I think, is better because I think that the gameplay is a little bit better. I'm just a little disappointed in the story mode. I think it's a really good Warriors game. I haven't played Age of Calamity yet. I'm going to go ahead and assume that the Zelda IP, that those two games are better than the Pirate Warriors games, just because there's probably more love put into them. But I do definitely recommend this game to One Piece fans.
Which is fortunate because that's the target audience of a One Piece game. Well, my number 5 is Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, which I mentioned earlier because I was so excited for this game. The first time I saw it, I was like, it's a 2D little side scroller, and I was like, hey, is this like a Vanillaware game? And the developers looked at me and they were just like, no, it's not. Please don't conflate that with Vanillaware. And I felt so awkward because the first thing I thought was, oh, it's a little combat action-oriented side-scroller. But don't ever think it's like Vanillaware's games, which is ironic.
Them, and that's why it got delayed so much. They were like, oh no, that girl shook our confidence. We're going to have to revamp the whole thing from the ground up.
That I was the reason behind the delay. But
Chary,
ironically...
Rice and Ruin.
Ironically, it's funny. I bring that up because I love Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, but also what's kind of overtaking it for my number 5 slot is Vanillaware's 2020-13 Sentinels. And I put it tentatively at number 5 because I haven't actually beaten it. I haven't gotten very far, but I just started it. And my gosh, it is a good game. It's not at all what you would expect from Vanillaware. It's not a little 2D action thing. You're in mechs, and it's almost like an Into the Breach Fire Emblem-y kind of strategy game, but with that whole crazy, amazing watercolor art that Vanillaware always does.
I'm vaguely familiar with that game, but I don't know much about Vanillaware.
Yeah, they're Odin Sphere or Muramasa.
Okay. Still don't know much about it.
That's definitely
Sorry.
You guys aren't weeb enough.
Eric, you're the weeb.
Well,
Do you know about this stuff?
I was like, oh, just wait till you get more further in my list. Sakuna actually is one of those games that I am kind of excited to play. It's very, very close to my backlog. Like, it's going to be one of the ones that I play probably next year for sure.
All right. Number 5 for my list is Call of Duty Warzone, that free-to-play battle royale game they put out, which sounds like it should be bad. It sounds like a very lazy, cynical cash grab. Call of Duty, free-to-play, battle royale, like, you know, chasing the trend 2 years after Fortnite came out. But that game is really, really solid, and that basically was the only thing I played for the first little bit of quarantine. The Call of Duty formula works surprisingly well for it. It was part of Modern Warfare, which was kind of a throwback to Call of Duty's heyday in like 2008 or 9. So it felt very familiar to me that someone that hadn't played the series in quite a while. It does a couple of clever things with the formula for battle royale games, like the Gulag, where after you get killed, you go into like this little one-on-one pit deathmatch with someone, and whoever wins gets to respawn. So like that sort of gives you this courage when you first start playing to like do really bold, stupid moves at the very start, and that can be really exciting, especially if it pays off. It gets your game going really well and you feel good. And even if it doesn't, you know that you have the Gulag, so you're like, whatever, I can just keep going. That's not a big deal at all. And like there's a whole money system where you can buy kill streak upgrades or, you know, extra armor and stuff like that. So like, and it's not like microtransaction money. You earn the money throughout the match. It's just a really solid battle royale game that does enough tweaks to be unique without really ruining the formula. That's a solid game.
My only experience with the Call of Duty series is watching my boyfriend play Warzone, and he was like, "Hey, you want to watch me play?" And I was like, sure," because I'm like, Call of Duty, really? But I watched him shoot down an entire helicopter and then absolutely gank the people that were in the helicopter, and then he got a ton of money, and I had no idea what was going on, but I was like, holy crap, what's that? And I was just so amazed, because here I thought that like Call of Duty was just like this bland shoot win game, but there was so much insane stuff happening in Warzone that I felt myself like, oh man, I kind of want to download it just because it looks so ridiculous.
Yeah, there is definitely some like silly, ridiculous, over the top stuff in it, but that's kind of why it works. It doesn't have that same like brown gray takes itself too seriously thing that people associate with Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Number 4, Alan John?
Finally. Wait, do you name your number 5?
It was Call of Duty.
Call of Duty Warzone.
It was pew pew.
Yeah, I kind of phased out once we started talking about One Piece. Sorry. Anyways, my
Alan
number
John took a nap then.
it's basically 2 a.m. So wow, sorry. But number 4 for me personally. Now,
Sorry, go on.
please. Number 4. Now this is serious. Number 4 is Animal Crossing New Leaf, which, well, because Animal Crossing New Horizons came out this year, and every Animal Crossing is basically the same.
Oh no, you did not just say that.
Well, like, what's the difference? It's just on a different system. It's got a higher resolution. Anyways, I played it on my 3DS, and it was like, oh, this is an interesting game. Like, there's no point to it. I really like that. You're like, hey, Tom Nook, I owe him money because I had to build a house in this place where I am, and I'm the mayor now for some reason. So yeah, this very interesting, abstract, surrealistic game. I really enjoyed, very Lynchian in its themes. So I didn't play it like at all. I played like a couple of hours of it, and I just don't get it. But I respect it. I respect this game. Why are there dogs barking right now at 2 a.m.? Why did I leave the window open?
Because you hate Animal Crossing and you deserve it.
Yeah. Oh, also to the people who have feelings for Isabel, what's wrong with you? Seriously.
Great. Now you've offended the furries all over again.
I mean,
what are we gonna do? Insult Melee players next?
listen, Melee players are better because, listen, there's so many attractive women in Nintendo's like library of characters.
I really
You've
thought you
got
were going to
Zelda.
say there's so many attractive dogs out there.
You got Star Fox, right?
You got
No.
Crystal.
Nah.
Not my type.
No, listen, you got Zelda, you got Samus, and you want to fuck the dog? Seriously? Okay, that's the end of my rant.
See, melee players are better because they have no aspirations of ever fucking anything or anyone.
Well, if they're over 18, then yes, of course.
All right, Eric, number 4.
So number 4. So as opposed to that anime tie-in game that I just said, my number 4 is actually a cartoon tie-in game. Samurai Jack: Battle Through Time was my number 4 best game. See, Samurai Jack is one of those things that I grew up with as a kid. I really enjoyed it, but I sort of tuned out of it after a while. And then, of course, it came back with a new season a couple years ago. And then this game came out. And this game takes place sort of after the ending, but also during the ending, and also replays the older story, which is really complicated to say. But suffice it to say, you'll relive in this game sort of a lot of moments from the original series and then from the new season. And then if you do things right, you actually get a different ending, which apparently is canon. So this is actually a prequel, sequel, everything to Samurai Jack. Unlike the One Piece game, though, I think that this is a game that can be played by people who have actually never seen the show or just have very limited knowledge of the show. The gameplay is really fun. It's sort of inspired by the older God of War games, like the ones for the PS2. And it is unlike Pyro Warriors 4. This is a very hard game, or it could be very hard. Your upgrades actually matter. You will replay stages over and over again to do them better and better. It's just sort of a old school style action adventure game. I really did enjoy it. And I think that regardless of if you're familiar with the series, you'll enjoy it as well.
Thank you, Eric.
Standing ovation.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Did Alan John fall asleep again?
Okay, Chary, you're number 4.
All right. Prepare to be completely unaware of whatever I'm about to talk about yet again, because I'm going to discuss a VR game, which is Until You Fall. And it released in 2019 in early access, but it didn't officially come out until this year, and pretty late in the game. I think it came out in November. But what it is it's a roguelite, but in VR. So that kind of like Dead Cells sort of gameplay experience where you go through a randomly generated area, you get new upgrades, and then you get beaten down by the horrible difficulty, and you start from scratch again. The fact that makes it so interesting is that you're playing it in VR, so your movement is obviously limited. So everything boils down to the combat. How you get a sword, and then you get a knife, one of which you use to attack, and the other which you primarily use to block. And there's all sorts of different attack patterns. It's ironically like Dark Souls, but in VR. So you have to learn all the enemy attacks and dodge, and you can even duck down or dodge to the side. So you actually need like a pretty good amount of area to play. Otherwise, you're going to headbutt your wall. But I think it was a really great take of a genre that you didn't really expect to see in VR or expect to work at all.
Yeah, like when you're talking about VR and you use the terms like roguelike and Dark Souls, those things, they sound very intriguing to me, like in VR, like with the roguelike aspect in it as well. I've only seen that work in like 2D games such as Binding of Isaac, you know?
Right.
And Dark Souls, oh, imagine dying all the time in VR.
Yeah, not fun. But when you get everything down, you get the gameplay down, and there's different weapons too, like you can use a hammer, and they feel weighty, which is a really important thing in VR. Like you don't want to just swing your controller and feel like you're just swinging a little Oculus controller. You want to feel like you're slamming down that hammer into an enemy. and it feels really good. So I guess give Until You Fall a try if you have a VR headset. I know that's not many people, given all the barriers to VR, but if you've got a setup, then it's almost certainly worth it. I'm glad we all have such drastically weird tastes from each other that we can't agree on any of our picks. We're just like, all right, cool, nice solo cast.
Anyway, my number 4, Deadly Premonition 2, A Blessing in Disguise.
Wow, it took just as long to get to this part of the podcast where you mention it than it took you to write the review.
Yep. This has been a 6-week-long podcast. If you're listening, Thug, I am so sorry. But Deadly Premonition 2, I almost said Deadly Premonition 2, the original. The original Deadly Premonition is one of my favorite games ever. It's this weird David Lynchian, and it's actually David Lynchian, not like Alan John was saying Animal Crossing is. It's directly inspired by Twin Peaks, and it's really surreal and weird, but it has this really strange sense of humor where everything is just kind of like off, and it hits that perfect sweet spot for like so bad it's good stuff like The Room or Troll 2, where you can't tell if it's bad on purpose or not. But the main character, Francis York Morgan, is this... He's just a perfect main character for this type of story. He's this guy, he's an FBI agent that investigates stuff, and he's very rude and brash and full of himself, but he's also very poetic and completely enraptured by the most mundane things, but completely bored by like horrible serial killings and stuff like that. So he's just this really strange character to follow around in this town full of weird stereotypes and bizarre characters, and there's all these like weird non sequiturs. It's hard to explain, and the sequel does a fantastic job of recapturing his character. Like I said, he was the most important part of the first one, and the writing in the sequel gets him down to a T. And for any other problems there might be in the sequel, and I have some problems, just being able to hang out with him for another 15, 20 hours, however long it is worth it.
Sounds like a weird game. From going off your review, I didn't know what to expect, and I still kind of don't know what to expect.
It's so hard to explain. It would take too much time to get into exactly what that game is and why it works. But if you like surreal comedy, you would probably really like the Deadly Premonition series. And I don't think the second one is anywhere near as good as the first one, but just being able to revisit those characters and getting a little bit of a wrap up on York's arc makes it worth the time, although I don't think I'll revisit it like I have the first one.
All right, number 3 for Alan John.
All right, so my number 3 is, well, it's funny that Chary and Eric were talking about weeb games from Japan, because my number 3 is actually a very weeb game that coincidentally is from Japan. My number 3 pick is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice from Software. I think this is a really good, fun game that plays on the Dark Souls formula quite well by changing the gameplay mechanics heavily while still remaining quite challenging of a game, adding new stuff such as jumping, which hasn't been seen before in the Dark Souls series, and resurrection abilities. Overall, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is definitely Game of the Year material, and I have no idea how The Last of Us Part 2 won Game of the Year, but Sekiro hasn't. It just blows my mind how this game was completely overlooked in this year of 2020.
Yeah, it's a real surprise. I wonder why everyone ignored it as the 2020 Game of the Year.
I think I have a theory.
So how did you enjoy the Stadia version, since it was the only 2020 release of Sekiro?
It's like...
The input lag definitely added another layer of difficulty, which made replaying the game quite interesting.
So, my number 3, because I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing about anime and cartoon tie-ins, but you're not tired of hearing about the anime stuff. So, it is Under Night in Birth X Late CL-R. Is the name of the game. Under Night in Birth X Late CLR.
I feel like a Russian sleeper agent, and that was my activation phrase. I mean, like, because I'm so
French bread
angry,
again.
I feel a need to kill Eric now. Like the Winter Soldier.
Well, so it's a pretty fun game. It's a fighting game. You know, it came out. Well, actually, it is kind of a remake because it originally came out for a bunch of arcade machines in 2012 in Japan, and then they just keep releasing new versions of it. And I actually haven't played any of the previous ones up until this one, so this is sort of my first experience with it, and it is a fun anime fighting game. You know, they got arcade modes, versus mode. They have every character has a story mode. It's not dubbed, but the Japanese voices sound okay to me, I suppose. Good soundtrack and all of that. Gameplay's nice. It's a fighting game. It's an anime fighting game. If you like anime fighting games, if you like Dragon Ball FighterZ, you like this. Go for it.
I have...
That's all I have to say about that.
You need to have played Under Night, colon, in reverse, 40, whatever. Like,
Darn it, that was my sleeper
Actually,
phrase.
you don't. This is the definitive version to buy. You do.
Okay.
It's because it's just the same game, but it has a new character. Why is it not DLC? No, just buy the game. This is one of those things where it's the same game that they keep releasing. It's not a very expensive game. The online, well, I played it on PS4. The online was kind of dead. I assume that it's not as bad on PC, but I also played it soon after release. So, it's a good game. It takes a lot to get good at it, though. Like any good fighting game, anyway. The tutorial kicked my ass for a while, but I was able to finally do pretty good at it, enough to say 8.5. I like it.
I have nothing to say about these crazy Arc System fighting games, but I just want to add in that the co-developer for all these Under Night, blah, 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 their name is French Bread, and I feel like I have to respect any game that's made by Studio French Bread.
that is a really good name. Is this based on a pre-existing property?
Don't think so. I think it's its own thing.
I wasn't sure if
Yeah.
that was... Oh, I'm thinking of like Fate Stay Night, I think is what I'm thinking of. That's a movie or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a visual novel that was adapted into an anime, which got Fate Extella, or Fate Extra, which were the spin-off games that were kind of... Fate Extella was the hacky-slashy one.
Oh, okay. I've only ever heard of the movie. I saw a listing for it at the local theater once, and I thought the fucking website was breaking. I was like, what is this? I saw the name.
Chary, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Clubhouse Games, which I feel like everyone is like, oh my gosh, Animal Crossing was the perfect pandemic game. No, Clubhouse Games was. But Clubhouse 51, I think it was a little lacking compared to the DS game, because my gosh, was the DS game fun. But this version had a ton of really cute concepts that were unique to the Switch. Like, you get 2 Switch consoles, and you get to arrange them to beat this little puzzle game with tanks. You both control tanks, and you start on each other's screens. But you can move the Switch to be in like an L pattern with the 2 consoles, or side to side. And depending on how you set up your Switches, it helps you strategically start the game. And it's really cute. There's like tons of little ideas that take advantage of the Switch's unique existence.
That does sound really cool. Yeah, I like that.
And then, of course, you've got all the classics like Bootleg Connect 4 or every card game under the sun. I mean, it's just a big collection of really fun games that you can play with your friends, and that's all it needed to be. It hit it out of the park.
Nice. Is that it? Is
Yeah,
number 2
not much
for me?
Yeah, number 2.
Fair
Or
enough.
3. Or what are we on? Yeah, it's
Number
3.
1. Let's just end this
We're on
shit.
3. It's,
Just
no, it's your number 3, Steven.
My
Yeah.
number 3 is Paradise Killer. It's an investigation game where basically you're trying to solve the murder of this, the governing body of over this little island has been murdered, and you need to go in and figure out who did it. And it's about a 20-hour game where this is the only case that you're investigating. It's not like something like Ace Attorney or LA Noire or Danganronpa where you're moving from case to case. It's this one thing, and it's an open world exploration game. It's an open world exploration game, so you're just walking around on your own. You can investigate little corners on your own and figure out what you need to do. And it really works because it gives you a lot of freedom to figure out what you want to do, but it's not so open that you end up completely directionless. It's good about pointing you where you need to go. And the problem that I have with investigation in a lot of games, like something like Ace Attorney or Danganronpa, is it feels very railroady. You're just kind of like poking around for different clues until you find what you need to find, and then you're allowed to go to the next scene and end up like in a dialogue scene or in a court scene so you can like actually play. Whereas with this game being the entire investigation, you're actually able to get invested in that investigation, and how open-ended it is means you can actually put thought into it and think about where you want to go and where you want to look and who you want to talk to, rather than, again, this railroady thing where you just need to get all the clues before you're allowed to move on. And the really interesting thing about this game is that you don't need all the clues to move on. When you feel you have a good enough case, you can go to the judge and start the trial and see if you can convince him that what you think is real is real. And there's actually, when the game ends, when you go to trial, there's nothing to tell you if like what you did was right or wrong. You just sort of, you either convince the judge or you don't. And, you know, the developers have said they know in their head like what they think really happened, but there's no way to confirm that you got the canon ending. You just sort of came to the conclusion that you came to, and that's it.
I find it interesting that they don't tell you whether you did right or wrong. Like, it's kind of like it leaves it up to the player's own imagination and uncertainty.
Yeah, well, it's like, you know, a real court case. If you were a lawyer and you went in and you got someone convicted of something, you don't necessarily 100% know for sure that they did it. It's just that was the case that was presented to you, and you had your evidence and made an argument, but maybe you were right, maybe you were wrong. You don't have any definitive way to find out.
Right. Eric, as a not lawyer, what do you think?
I was going to say, no, I actually really appreciate that that they sort of leave that realism there, because there, you know, it's very rare that you actually get a satisfying conclusion when you're in court. On you don't know if the client, whether you're representing him or whether you're trying to prosecute him, you don't know if they actually did it, you know. Or I guess in some cases you do, but the prosecution will never really have 100% definitive proof. We know that he did it, and then you can, you know, it's not as satisfying as it appears to be on TV.
Yeah, or in a video game where... Yeah, no, so that's a really cool game. And it builds a really interesting world. It takes place in this kind of like weird, like very alien world. It's all based around this... religion where people are worshiping aliens and trying to like resurrect, well, they're trying to resurrect these dead gods that are actually just aliens, and so there's this weird like cultish thing happening in this world, and you're trying to maneuver around that while you're doing these investigations. It feels very convoluted for the first hour or so, but once you kind of get yourself oriented, it works really well to have the world be that unique, because it means that while you're not always only just focused on the investigation. You are kind of trying to figure out the ins and outs of just this culture as well, which gives you a little bit of something to take focus away from the investigation without broadening it too much to take away from how effective that investigation is. And
Alan John, what's your second favorite game?
Hey, yo, what's up? My number 2 game of the year of 2020, the game that came out this year. This is actually a game that actually legitimately came out this year, and it's a very good game. This was almost number 1. If it wasn't for the first game, this game would have been number 1, because it's a very high quality game, very game filled with soul, and you know, I really enjoy it. Doom Eternal.
yes, motherfucker. Yes, rip and tear.
Rip and tear. That game it's a great sequel. It adds to the previous incarnation. It removes useless stuff such as the pistol. I mean, who needs that puny little pew pew? No, give me the shotgun. Give me a super shotgun with a grappling hook. Yeah, that's what I want. It's a big shame that what's his name? Hugh Grant. No, what's his name?
It's a shame Hugh Grant didn't come back to voice the Doom guy like he did in the 2016 one.
No, I'm so tired. The composer, what's his name?
Oh, I can't think of it right now. Was that not the same guy?
It was the same guy, but he left.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I forgot there was like a bit of drama. Didn't Bethesda say or he said Bethesda wasn't paying him or something?
Something
there was
like
some
that.
kerfuffle that happened, and he quit the project halfway through, and he backpedaled and said it was an amicable whatever, probably because Bethesda was like, our lawyers are waiting.
Yeah, so I don't know about like
It was really weird.
the DLCs released for Doom Eternal. They're actually completely by a new guy. I don't know if they're good or not. From what I've listened, they're okay. They don't have the same like punch that guy had. What was his name? How did I forget his name? His music is literally on my playlists. Wait 1 second.
The music is phenomenal in Doom Eternal. Like the best thing, it's just
Mick
that game is
Gordon.
Mick Gordon, yeah. But like you're running around in the game, it plays so fast, and it kind of like it gets you really amped up. And just to have this like heavy metal music in your ear while you're doing it, it just fits the tone that game sets so well. Like you were saying, it's very lean. Like it gets rid of little stuff like the shotgun or the pistol. It keeps things that work like the mods. There's like very little story, so you're not getting slowed down by anything. It's just kind of similar to what I was saying about Tony Hawk. It's just like there's not a wasted second in that game.
I also really enjoy the Marauders. Like, I know that's a controversial opinion, but I really enjoy like this kind of enemy that makes you stop. Like, oh, this isn't just running and shooting. Now this is Dark Souls. Now you gotta wait for a window. You gotta wait for his eyes to turn green. Oh, dude, I love that segment. Even though it kicked my ass multiple times, and from what I heard in the DLCs, they rely heavily on these Marauders, so I can't wait to try that.
Yeah. Doom Eternal is really good, really solid, very fun game.
All right, so for my number 2, because I figured, you guys are sick of hearing. No, I'm
Gosh dang it. We can't get away from the weeb cast.
okay. All right, so I'm tired of talking about that big boy stuff. We're going to talk about something that you guys really care about. My number 2, which just so happens to be an anime IP.
Whoa.
That's right, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot.
Finally, something good.
Something good. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Chary, I know that you played this also. It's a good game. I mean, it's just a good, fun game. It's probably the best video game if you just want to experience the Dragon Ball story. It's an open world game. It's sort of like if you take the old legacy of Goku games for the Game Boy Advance and you blow them out. I wouldn't say that this is better than that, but it's sort of like that for the new generation.
It's the legacy of Goku games with a budget.
Exactly. My biggest complaint about the game is that I really wish that it followed the original Dragon Ball instead of Dragon Ball Z, because it really seems like that was the series that would lend itself to being a open world RPG like this, whereas in Z, you're pretty much, the characters are like way too strong to like be flying around defeating robots and stuff.
Yeah.
But this covers from the beginning of Z all the way to the end of Z, and then there's some DLC that deals with some super stuff, some stuff from Dragon Ball Super, that is. I really enjoy this game. Dragon Ball's up there is one of my favorite generic shonen animes of all time. So I really enjoyed all the little Easter eggs that they threw in here also.
Yeah, it was really cute. My favorite part of the game was the side content, just the stuff that was happening, like what was going on between the Cell arc. Like, I think there's just like little side quests where Gohan has to get groceries for his mom, and it's just like, you know what? Some of my favorite stuff with Dragon Ball is the fluff that happens, the filler crap, and the game is chock full of that.
Yeah, I think even at the beginning, like it was like one of the cutest openings where you're Goku and Gohan and you're going fishing, and like you just sort of have this interaction with Gohan where you're like, okay, oh come on boy, you can come with me, let's go on a walk, and you can't walk too fast because Gohan gets scared, and that sounds like really obnoxious and like it's slowing the pace down, but it really brings the characters together. And unlike what Team 4-Star would leave you to believe, it's like, oh, Goku's not that bad of a father sometimes. So yeah, it's just the sweet little interactions, and then launches in the game a lot. So it's like that's just as a side character that you don't really ever see in the actual show or anime.
Yeah.
The fighting, it gets repetitive after a while, but honestly, I didn't really get tired of it until maybe the Boo arc. Is maybe when it started to lag, but for the most part, I was entertained the entire time.
Yeah, I don't like the Boo saga to begin with, but I remember distinctly, I was going to be like, all right, I beat Cell, that's kind of where I'm about to jump off. But then I had a glitch where there were just 3 Gohans in a cutscene, and it just baffled me so greatly that how the game broke like that. And I have a video of it. I'll share it later. But there were just 3 Gohans in the cutscene, and I was just like, you know what? Darn it, I'll keep playing. And I ended up beating it, which says a lot for my perspective because I'm always like, oh gosh, the Boo Saga, forget it.
Yeah, we could talk. Let's talk about the Boo Saga for a while.
3-hour podcast about the Boo Saga and how much it sucks.
I kind of sort of like it,
but just so much better. Let's be honest.
Yay!
The Cell Saga was much better. You guys want to talk about it?
Yes, absolutely. Let's do it. Steven doesn't have enough to edit.
No.
Frieza's still my favorite villain, but
we're
yeah,
joking.
Cell's up
We're
there.
joking, Eric. We're not talking about this.
Okay, I just want to make sure, guys, wait, no, we have to make sure everyone needs to know that this is the best Dragon Ball game because Vegeta wears his bad man shirt.
Oh!
He sure does.
Damn.
I mean, if you haven't played it, play it. I mean, okay, would you say that you would recommend this to somebody who hasn't who just has a very passing knowledge of Dragon Ball?
100%. It's so approachable because it covers literally everything. And really, as much as I like the original Dragon Ball, you can kind of just get the gist of it from the start, from Z all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's anyone who likes kind of anime-ish games can pick this up, and it's really fun.
So what's your number 2?
Dragon Ball Kakarot, let's talk.
Ah!
All right, Steven.
Okay. We shared one. You go, Steven.
Okay, my number 2 is Doom Eternal. So,
Great.
Neat.
yeah, fantastic game. No, I mean, I won't have anything else new to say about it. Actually, there was one little thing I forgot about. I love for the very tiny amount of story that's in this game. I really like because the tone set by the 2016 one, and this one continues it, is that the story doesn't really matter. Doom players aren't interested in the story, and so the way they express that in the game is that the main character is not interested in the story. When people try to talk to him, he ignores them. When people try to tell him what's happening with the demons, he doesn't care. And this game continues that for the most part. And there's also a little detail that I love, which is that the demons that are invading Earth, literally the only thing they're afraid of is the Doomslayer. Like, that's the only thing in the known universe that bothers them is this one dude who's literally just a dude with a gun, but they're all terrified of him, which is just like the kind of like campy, silly detail that fits Doom so perfectly.
So well optimized also compared to some other big games that released this year.
Made specifically by CD Projekt
Speaking
Red.
of,
Yeah.
Speaking of Alan John, what's your number 1?
My number 1. Wait, let me just get off my bed. So, my number 1 game of the year of 2020 is The Last of Us Part 2. Now, this game, I don't have a PlayStation 4, but I made a full playthrough on YouTube before the game was even out. And and since Sony exclusives, they're quite linear in their structure, and it's basically compared to movies now. I feel like I'd get the same experience. I mean, I actually have a DualShock controller, so what I did is I was watching the game on YouTube, and I was mashing the buttons as if I was playing. If you think about it, this is the same one-to-one experience. Now, the story, a game journalist once, when reviewing this game, said, we're done comparing games to movies. Now, after Last of Us Part 2, we should compare movies to games. Because the cinematic experience that was given to us in Last of Us Part 2, especially in all the lesbian sex scenes and all the straight sex scenes, the heartwarming scene where Abby gets fucked. Ooh, dude. So satisfying to watch. I'm so glad I am playing a game with that kind of stuff in it, because this is the best way to show that your game is made for a mature audience. It's by showing sex scenes, which add absolutely nothing to the gameplay. Such a stark contrast in comparison to a game such as Doom Eternal, where you don't need sex scenes. But anyways, returning back to Last of Us Part 2, yeah, truly the narrative in this game was cinema grade, if not even higher. I think this is a new realm of storytelling. Neil Drugstore, or whatever his name is, he did a fantastic job directing this game. So, the game killed all the white men, just like I like it. I don't like those. So, yeah. I'm glad Neil Druck, whatever, he became he's head of Naughty Dog right now, right? He's like the president.
He's the co-CEO.
Definitely deserves it. This game won Best Direction, and it was developed completely in crunch time, so it deserves Best Direction as well. That's a great game director right there. So, yeah, let's clap for Last of Us Part 2, the official GBAtemp Game of the Year. Right. You all agree with me, right?
Obviously. And I think that playing it on YouTube is truly the way that Neil Truck Driver meant to let it be experienced. Because where the game normally doesn't give you a choice in killing the dogs or the people, the innocents, and it's like, oh man, you're supposed to feel sad. Game wants you to feel sad. Well, if you play it on YouTube, you can just skip the parts that make you sad, and it gives you more choice than the original game. So if you decide to play The Last of Us Part 2, play it on YouTube, the way it was meant to be experienced.
It's almost like Google Stadia.
The inputs affected the gameplay just as much. My number one game of the year, Gunlord X. Have you guys ever played Turrican? This is that. This is that. Have you ever played Contra?
No.
It's that.
Oh, nice.
Have you ever played Metroid?
No.
It's kind of that. Damn it. Well, this is a sort of a spiritual successor to all of those games. It's funny because it originally came out for the, what did it come out for? The Neo Geo. And for the Dreamcast in 2012, though.
Good old Dreamcast.
So it came out in 2012.
Still more popular in 2012 than the Wii U was.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this game came out for those older systems. The Neo Geo was like 22 years old at the time, and the Wii U just hit the shelves, and you were thinking, oh, well, the Wii U, which is basically just an extension of to the Wii as far as anybody was concerned. But anyway, this was a really fun game. It clearly... Oh, by the way, the reason why I'm talking about it now is because they then remade it as Gunlord X, and an improved version was available on the PSN store, and also it was uploaded.
Hey, bleep that out.
Yeah, no, yeah. Uploaded where? No, it was put on the PSN store and also the Nintendo store. It's only $10, but I mean, it's one of those old-fashioned run and gun pixely games, but because it's running on modern hardware, it does do more things than you would be able to do on those older games. Like the artwork looks better, the soundtrack is better. It's a 9-level game. It's a short experience, but for $10, you definitely get your money's worth out of it. I sort of like to say, if I'm playing a run and gun game, if there's lots of running and there's lots of gunning, I like it. And this had both of that. So I recommend spending $10 to play Gunlord X for a while.
I wouldn't have been...
Game of the year.
I haven't been convinced. None of you guys have convinced me to buy any of these games. You all suck. But Gunlord X, if it's anything like Contra, I'm actually kind of interested.
All right, Chary, what was your best game of the year?
Genshin Impact. I know we haven't talked enough about Japanese-made games, so I'm glad we get to have a little bit of inclusion for my number one pick. But it's basically if a train full of Breath of the Wild copies smashed into a car that was just full of random JRPGs, because that is exactly what Genshin Impact is. I mean, you can't really go wrong with bootleg Breath of the Wild, so... why not just play Breath of the Wild, but with anime girls?
And it's free to play, right?
It is, and obviously it does have those predatory elements where it's like, hey man, you want to buy some shiny gems to pull for more waifus? But the game is good enough to the point where you can't really get by from what you're given for the free-to-play units, but you get enough gems from completing missions that you'll be able to pull and get 4-star units that will get you far enough into the game where it'll probably get you 100 hours of content before you start to feel like, gosh, the game is really beating me down for being a free-to-play scrub. And honestly, 100 hours for free, can't really go wrong with that.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's hard to complain about.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give my number one, which is definitely not a game anyone here has played. It's a little bit of a cheat because technically it's 3 games. Well, actually, it's technically 36 games. It's the DreadX Collection 1, 2, and 3, which are these really cool little indie games that have been coming out. There was one in May, one in August, and one in October from a company called DreadX. They report on horror games. They're a sister site to Dread Central. Anyone who is into horror stuff will probably be familiar with that. They've been getting indie developers to make these like half-hour to hour-long horror games and been releasing them in collections. And they're really, really cool. There's just a lot of variety in them because they're coming from all kinds of different developers. And where they're so small, they tend to just be really out there with their ideas. The ideas don't even really need to be that fleshed out, so they can get very strange and surreal with them. A lot of them tend towards first-based exploration things because that's the easiest thing to make in Unity, but even those ones have a good bit of variety in them. And if you're into horror stuff, there's a lot of interesting stuff to see here. And even if you just are interested in analyzing games and gameplay mechanics or what's scary, there's so many different things thrown in here that it's cool to just play and see what works and what doesn't and try to pick apart why something works. But really, and that's really the biggest thing about it is that even if a game doesn't work, it's still fun to try and think about what didn't work about it, why didn't it click with you or whatever. But really, yeah, the best thing about it is the variety in them because some of them get so strange. There's one in the second collection called Sucker for Love, which is a visual novel where you date Cthulhu. There's one called Chips Tips, which is an FMV game where you basically play a horror version of Blue's Clues. There's one called Mr. Bucket Told Me To, which is basically Castaway if the volleyball Wilson was a murderer. Like they just
I really like your comparisons here. Like you're so casual. Like a visual novel about dating Cthulhu, horror Blues Clues. Yeah, no, that's what they are.
That's what they are. They get so weird. There's one called Squirrel Stapler, which is about a dude. It starts off with a guy in a cabin. And there's a rotting corpse in front of him, and he laments that his beloved doesn't smell as good as she used to because all of her flesh is rotting. So he wants to make her beautiful, like the squirrels of the woods. And so then you go outside, and it's a hunting game where you kill squirrels and bring them back to this cabin and staple them to the dead woman's body.
Oh.
What is this game? What?
It gets so weird because then like the squirrels are hunting you back, and there's ghost squirrels, and there's a giant monster squirrel that'll kill you. And I don't want to give too much away, but there's a possibility of the rapture happening at the end of it. Like the rapture is looming over most of Squirrel Stapler.
I want to play this game.
It's so fucking good, honestly. Like there's so many just bizarre, strange, wonderful ideas in there. Yeah, like I don't want to give them all away, but like there's a lot of really interesting games put in there into this collection. Some of them take themselves seriously. Some of them are really silly and funny. Some there's a couple of weird ones. Yeah, I can't recommend the DreadX collections enough. They're really, really good games, and they're really cheap too. I think the first one is $7 on Steam, and the second two are like 8 or 10 or something.
They sound so absolutely out there. I feel like that is probably the weirdest number one game of the year that anyone's going to have.
Maybe, but I don't care. They're good. They're the best thing that I've played this year by far.
Squirrel Stapler Rapture Edition Game of the Year for 2021, please.
Well, that's the thing. They're turning some of these into full games. Sucker for Love, the one where you date Cthulhu, is being turned into a full visual novel where you have to decide between 3 different Lovecraft monsters. You have to decide which one you want to worship and sacrifice humans to summon and then date.
That is amazing.
I can't wait for that, honestly.
All right, everyone. So Alan John fell asleep on us. We've been recording for about 2.5 hours. We're all just gonna gather on. We're gonna dogpile on Alan John, socially distant, that is, and take a big old nap. So thank you for listening, and do all the stuff that you're supposed to do. Smash the bell icon, I guess, and
Subscribe
that's
to the
it.
YouTube.
Okay, bye,
yeah,
love
we're
you.
doing more video reviews on the YouTube. I did Cyberpunk earlier. I bet there'll be another one at some point.
Yeah, it was
soon.
good.
Just go to the YouTube, watch the videos. When you're finished, just watch them again.
Just put them on repeat.
Alan John might actually be asleep. Okay.
This is the Tempcast theme. It goes something like this. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.
I feel like I'm listening to a music box version of the Tempcast theme. Like you pick it up and it's a little Alan John sleeping on his bed, spinning around in circles.
It's 2 a.m.